Okay, up next in campaign ideas, going to use the Rune Quest starter set. So this game is set in like the Bronze Age. So like what you can do is kind of, if you want to, you can kind of like flip it into like a more like an Iron Age or like high fantasy type of campaign like with D&D. So I'm going to this book the starter set has its own like a set of rules. So like as I go through this, so like it has like a starter set. It has its own rules and like kind of like ideas and everything. So for the world of Glorantha, so I'm going to flip it into like a D&D set and everything. So like it'd be relatively easy. So like we can kind of like this rule book in a sense. I'll take it and just kind of chuck it for now to kind of like bring it into like the Dungeons and Dragons idea. So they do have like adventure books in here, and like they also have one for like a solo quest. So what you can do is use like in a sense like the solo quest as like kind of like a introductory adventure, and then like these adventures you can actually use like as that first solo book you can use as like you said an introductory as like springboard into these adventures and everything. So it does actually come like on the back of the books. It comes with a map and everything. So like you start off up here in Johnstown. So I'll actually get like the much bigger map that it actually comes with as well. So you can actually see how big this is and everything. So as I sit here and find Johnstown, so yep, right there. So that's where Johnstown is. So to kind of like bring it back in, the adventure books, like first and foremost, like the first book is like a solo quest to kind of like give you like an introductory. So like players could play through it, and you play as like in a sense the princess, as the princess of Johnstown. But the idea that like I'm going to say with that is like instead of doing that, like what you do is your characters, your player characters, PCs are in a sense important figures of the town and everything, and like the princess comes to them because the whole idea of that first solo quest is that there's attack on a danger for it or whatever. So you use like the attack as a kind of like backdrop. So she comes to like the PCs instead of the stereotypical trope everyone meets in a tavern. Hey, look, you're an important characters in the town of Johnstown. The princess comes to you. Hey, look, we have this impending attack and everything. We need your help to raise the alarm and defense and everything. So with in essence, like with Johnstown being right here and everything, people can pause and like kind of like zoom in and check and everything. With that, the whole first adventure is in a sense like the defense of the city, and your PCs become important, even more important and everything. So in this game, they actually have like rune magic, and so it's much more like geared towards like a sorcerers, and of course like you could quite possibly keep it in the Bronze Age. So an idea like that I have is like down here, if you look pause and like is Aelbard's Tower. So the idea that I had in everything is like once you go through this series of adventures that like are in a sense portrayed in this book, after like the initial defense of the city, you springboard into those adventures and you go around the surrounding area around Johnstown and find like a mystery of or whatever of trolls, and the trolls are pronounced the antagonists or the villains of the main adventures. So you use trolls as kind of like the big bad evil guys to start off with, and then through like the course of like this adventure book, you go through like the where their main hideout is, as I referenced. Well, here's the first and foremost, as I'm kind of disorganized, is the town of Johnstown. So you have an idea of that. They do in the adventures have like a layout for like the place that you're going, the the cavern or whatever. So this could be the trolls, in a sense, base of operation. So you find that, like, in a sense, like the initial attack was like orchestrated by the trolls. So now through these series of adventures, you pretty much take the fight to the trolls and everything. So as you like progress, you end up defeating the trolls, and in that cavern, maybe you find like a baby or a juvenile white dragon or something. You then do battle with like that dragon at the end of like the series of adventures or whatever, and then you get even deeper into the mystery of like well, why did these trolls all of a sudden start attacking Johnstown? Like maybe you find out that like the Aelbard's Tower, the idea of, like, what comes to mind for me is someone like Saruman. Like now, Rune Quest here is, like I said, pretty much primarily based on like rune magic. So you could in a sense gear towards more like towards like the sorcerer class, at least for arcane spellcasters, and the divine spellcasters and everything. There are like, in a sense, the gods are much more directly involved. So you could like gear more towards like the druid classes, like much more in tune with nature and like nature gods and like sky gods, the elemental gods of like earth, air, fire, water, stuff like that. What you find out with the Aelbard, Aelbard's Tower, whatever, Aelbard himself is actually a wizard, like I said, kind of like Saruman. He unlocked like maybe the arcane magics through like the wizard class, and so now he's the all overarching big bad evil guy. So he's like a wizard who's lived centuries, and he's unlocked arcane powers to be able to do that. And so now you set him at like at least like a level 20 big bad evil guy wizard or whatever. So he's the one who orchestrated the whole the chaos behind the troll attack, and like he's coordinating the trolls and everything. So then, like with that, like the first, in a sense, scenario where you take the fight to the trolls and the white dragon that I mentioned, that could quite possibly get you up to like maybe like level 7 or 8 or whatever, through the series of adventures, and then from like we'll say 7, and then from 7 to say to like 14, you start going into like the broader area around Johnstown and start like doing battle with like the Aelbard's minions, and like in a sense start taking the fight to him and instead of like having let him take the battle to you. You go out and start like picking off maybe some enemies, and like maybe you use like orcs and goblins, and again using Saruman as a kind of like a base idea for the big bad evil guy wizard and Aelbard and his tower and everything. So like with this whole series, like of course like you do get the vibe of like Conan the Barbarian back in like that time frame and everything. So think of like a wizard, not only like Saruman, but a wizard like in that time frame could be someone who's like long lived, and like using the example that I used where he could unlock the powers like in a sense of immortality. He's lived for like 200 or 300 years, and he's slowly been able like to increase his influence, and his ideas like in a sense good old world domination. So like good old Pinky in the Brain. What are we going to do tonight, Brain? Same thing we do every night, try and take over the world. So that like using that trope as an example for this campaign quest, you have Aelbard as like the overarching big bad evil guy who's trying to like in a sense conquer the world, and Johnstown as it sees is like the last bastion of hope, like a last holdout of hope against his domain, because he's got puppets all over the other places and everything. So the whole idea of this campaign would be to kind of slowly turn the tide back against him. So from like getting back to like a level 7, from level 7 to 14, you start taking out like I said, in the surrounding area, start taking out his puppets and everything. And then like from levels like maybe 14 to 19 or whatever, you now start getting more allies and start taking the fight to him and everything. And that like you level up to like level 20 right before you take the battle into like the final like scenario where you go into Aelbard's Tower and you defeat Aelbard himself, and then like you pretty much save the world type of deal. So this is an idea on how to use like a starter set for like for instance like Rune Quest, and kind of shift it into like a game like Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, quite possibly you don't necessarily need to do that, because like you got all the rules and stuff to be able to do that right in here and everything. But if you're someone like that's in a sense brand new, or like you have your DM and you have like at least 2 or 3 brand new players, or players that have only done 1 or 2 campaigns with the D&D or something, it'd be kind of hard to learn like a whole new set of like rules and stuff for like a new, completely different game and everything. So this is why I'm saying gearing it towards D&D, so that way it'd be easier for the newer players and or attract new players and be like, hey, look, I got like I'm a DM, like my group like of 3 people. We're looking for 2 to 3 more people. You bring in those 2 or 3 more people. You introduce them to this with the whole concept of D&D and everything. So that way, it's in a sense it could be a lot easier for them to kind of like learn and everything. So, but again, to each his own and everything. So this is just an idea on how to like, hey, look, here's what you can do for like a Rune Quest type of campaign, overarching like again, like I mentioned, like going like all the way from like level 1 to level 20 for 7 levels is pretty much in and around Johnstown, using this adventure book and everything, and you're going up against like the trolls and stuff. And like level 7 to 14, you start going into the broader world and everything. And then from like 14 and on, you pretty much are now starting to take the fight directly to the big bad evil guy himself and everything. So this is like kind of like an overarching theme, and it isn't really necessarily like getting into the minute details of like a campaign. This is just the kind of, and of course the idea of these videos is just kind of to be like, here's an idea, here's an overarching theme, here's something you can do using like a pre-made material and everything. So, because if you look in the DM guide, there's always the debate of using a pre-made world like Forgotten Realms or like RuneQuest here, or doing your own world building, which takes a lot more legwork to do and everything. So I'm going to say, hey, look, here's an idea for people, especially like if you're relatively used to being a dungeon master as well. This is an idea that I can pop out there and be like, hey, look, here's an idea for you, like a campaign idea. Take what this overarching theme and run with it, and maybe like you can like maybe in a sense transplant it to like Forgotten Realms, do a bunch of little tweaks and stuff, or maybe you could transplant it to Greyhawk or Dragonlance or any of the other pre-made campaign settings that are out there. Or you could in a sense take this and like again like use your own use this world as your own, and then like do whatever. So but this is the kind of the overarching theme for this, going into like a Bronze Age and like kind of doing a little slightly different twist. Sorcerers as the main arcane spellcasters instead of wizards, druids versus instead of clerics as the main divine. It is set in the Bronze Age. Here's an overarching theme that you could introduce arcane spellcasters like the wizard as like a big bad evil guy, and quite possibly you could have an ally of him as like a cleric and everything. So this is just like an overarching theme for the world of RuneQuest and how you could quite possibly do a campaign with this as well.